All right, I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to look at something new. There you go. So, years ago, I used to play in this thrash band in town called Hands on Throat. Awesome band, wicked fun, super fast, super violent. And I play drums, so I burn a lot of calories. Practice for 4 hours a night. This was awesome, totally awesome. And for some reason, I thought it was wise to eat Del Taco half-pound bean and cheese burritos before practice. So every Wednesday, we'd go for practice, and on the way, I'd grab some Del Taco half-pound bean and cheese. I think I bought 4 of them at a time, I believe. I put the nutrition information about them right here. The amount of fat and salt in these things is staggering. 70% of your daily intake in one. I used to eat 4 of them. Of course, then I would sweat 3 gallons of sweat out, so I kind of balanced. Well, it's amazing that I'm healthy after eating this for 4 years, but regardless, as I would ride out of practice, I was that?
How do you eat 2 pounds of burritos in one
Did you ever go to a Hands on Throat show back in the day, 2006, 2010? It would make perfect sense if you saw that. It was like CrossFit class, like on stage with screaming. I mean, I guess you do scream in CrossFit, so it's like CrossFit class on stage.
2 pounds of anything in one stage.
I don't know. I just did. But I didn't always, and here's why, Megan. Here's why. As I started riding back and forth to practices, I started asking myself, because this is what you do after a while, after you monotonously go through something, get used to the commute, why do they call it a half-pound bean and cheese burrito?
It's a half pound?
Is it a half pound? The question was, is it a half pound? So what I did was, I borrowed a really nice precise scale from Bruce Emerson Physics Department, brought the scale to practice, and it's a slightly biased sample, because what I would do was, I would randomly generate a number from 1 to 4 on the way to practice. And I would buy that many burritos at Del Taco on the way to practice.
You randomly generate a number on the way to practice?
No, before I left.
Oh,
So I kept that number in my head. No, I can't, you know we can't do that. You know we can't do that. No, I used technology. I think it was my TI back in the day. I think
I was calling you out on it.
You were, you should, and good. And then I just like 2, and I'd go there and buy 2 of them. And if it was 2 before I left the house, I'd augment my diet with something else to eat. And then I'd buy those, bring them down to practice, weigh them, and then consume them. So and here's the weights. Consumed them, not eaten, consumed. So there's the weights of, how many did I did 30, and then pull the plug on it. So here are the 30 weights of Del Taco's half-pound bean and cheese burritos. So my question was, they're called half-pound bean and cheese burritos. How much do they actually weigh? Based on that. So if you now we can look at that anecdotally, and you look up there, and what do you notice? Say that again. Do they?
They're over 100 pounds.
Are they?
Some are slightly under.
Heavier a little bit.
So the question now is, we live in a litigious society, we do.
Some people are overzealous with the beans.
Well, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to mix up the sample a little bit by generating a random number. And the problem was there's plenty of bias loaded in. First of all, it's the same restaurant. Secondly, it's probably the same person making it every week, I would imagine, because it's the same person, the same shift every week. We always practice on Wednesday from 6 to 10. But the question is, if this is the best data I could have gotten, which essentially it was, based on that data, do they weigh half a pound?
Pretty much.
Well, what define pretty much?
Good enough that I wouldn't argue and be like, yeah.
Okay. So if I asked you, I want a more precise, I love this answer, by the way. Pretty much, and enough that I wouldn't argue. But what if just, again, how many were under half a pound? 1?
7.
7, thank you. 7 of 30. 7 of 30, which ends up being like 20% or something like that-ish, somewhere in there. Jack, go ahead.
I just ran out because it says the serving size is 241 grams.
Which is?
Which is 0.531 pounds.
Exactly.
Oh.
So, brother, I did that too. Jack, thank you for not seeing that and doing that independently. No, thank you for not seeing that and doing it independently. That's perfect. Now here's the deal though. This is Google, this is the nutrition facts Del Taco has on their website. This is a Google translation of 241 grams to pounds, so it's 0.53 pounds. What's being ignored? Boom! The margin of error, as always, is being ignored. As always will be, has been ignored here.
Hold if you go into the store and pick up a granola bar and it's gonna be like, it has between this many calories and this many calories, I mean.
It
that
technically
doesn't-
should.
I know, but.
Now, here's the deal, though.
Mind if
Here's
you
the
say
deal.
that.
Here's the deal. Chances are the tolerances on those things, which are made by machines, is much tighter than the tolerances on this thing, which is made by a human being. Like a thing like a can of Coke, or the volume of a bottle of water, or something like that. It's made by a machine, probably. Its tolerances are so tight that you can essentially ignore the margin of error there. I don't think we can ignore this. And I'm seeing 0.58. I'm seeing 0.49. I mean, that's a tenth of a pound difference from those two that I just had to look up and see. So I want precision on this one. I want to say, can we claim that these are at least half a pound? Now the question is, we obviously can't say that each one is half a pound, because some of them aren't. But can we say, on average, they're half a pound? Can we say that? Well, let's analyze. Let's analyze. Find me the average of my sample. Because we need two things. We need two things. We need to develop an interval around this, yes?
Yeah.
We need to develop an interval around this. Because it needs to have a center and it needs to have a spread.
Well, there's a problem though, because they're labeling it a half pound and they're labeling it 5 3 times.
Hold that thought. We'll come back. I promise you we'll come back to that. I promise you. I think there's a reason for that. And I think, well, I'm not sure if I know the answer to that. We'll come back to it. Let's crank some numbers.